Hello, my name is Lauren and I am the lead gardener here at Bachman's, and today for our Facebook Live session we are going to be discussing why to divide perennials, when to divide them, and how to do that. So fall is a fantastic time to do that part of your garden work, spring and fall, because of the cooler temperatures. And also, if you do it in the spring, it's nice and easy when the plants are smaller and more compact to just get a good visual of where you're digging around. And then another reason in fall is because your garden's kind of over, it's going to bed for the season, and we don't really mind going in and messing it up a little bit more right now. So fall and spring are great times to do that. Some of the things that I wanted to discuss about dividing perennials are what to do or how to do that. And one really important thing to do when you are dividing is when you're digging in the soil, try to get as much of that soil around the root ball as you can, just to make it an easier transition for the plant. And it also helps keep as many of the roots there as possible without cutting those off. So it's obviously the root ball is what is most important here and what we're trying to focus on preserving. Another thing that you want to do when you're ready to divide is assess your area and your situation. Maybe your plants are starting to run into something else, or just you want your plants more compact. So assessing where you want to make those borders is a good idea. And then something else, a reason why you would want to divide your perennials is if you notice that they're not blooming as well anymore, just not performing. If they're starting to flop from the center. Some people are wondering why their plants are flopping, or they think an animal's come laying in the middle of them. And most likely it's a reason could be that they need to be divided. Something you see that a lot in is sedum, the perennial sedum that it's supposed to be upright and then it starts flopping, and that's a perfect plant to go in and divide to make smaller, to avoid that. Also, dividing helps encourage, or just gives more space for the roots to develop for the other plants there, which encourages and helps them be able to absorb the nutrients that they need and more water. So which will obviously help with the plant development and get those blooms back for you. So that's a main reason to divide. Also, to create some airflow for example, this patch right here, this geranium, it's super dense, and to get some airflow in there would be really nice, and that helps prevent an environment where disease can start developing. So it's important to get that airflow through there. Some things that we want to make sure that we're paying attention to or not doing while we're dividing is to cut directly into the crown of the plant, if you can at all avoid that. Something like a hosta is full of them, and they're pretty difficult to kill off, so they'll probably be okay, but it's just a good practice to keep in mind. Try to avoid slicing right through those, and the transplant will be you'll have a better success rate doing that. So avoid hitting the crown. Another thing you want to make sure you're doing or not doing is letting it dry out after you transplant your divisions. It's super important for those roots to get water so that they're able to reestablish in the bed again. And if it is springtime, that'll just help that development looking healthy and not stressed out. And then in the fall, just to make sure that they're nice and settled in before that first hard frost comes or the ground starts freezing. If you do it too late or you don't provide that water, there is a chance that you're going to lose your plants, unfortunately. So making sure that we water. Also, not that you can't do it, but it's not necessarily advised to do it on a super hot day, like a 90-degree day in July, just because of that heat stress. It's just going to make it more difficult for those plants to pick up and will require a lot of water. So keeping all of those things in mind, for me, I do dividing almost all year long. You can, but it's just advised to do spring and fall. No matter when you do it, water. Make sure you water. So that's the main thing. Also, maybe right now with the fall time, you might just want to cut the foliage off completely, all the leaves, and just leave that root ball and that crown there. That's perfectly fine too. So those leaves aren't trying to pull up that water away from the roots, and it allows your roots to, again, just take off nicely. So those are some things to keep in mind as you are going forward. So I here today have in front of me a hosta, some astilbe, and some wild geranium. All of these were found here on this property in what I thought were areas that were pretty dense, and they're starting to run into other plants, and just a good idea to do some divisions on. So this hosta clump, it's an okay size. There's more of that soil there. I'm not sure if you guys can see that you're trying to keep when you are digging through the roots. But you can lay it out here on the ground, wherever your workspace is. And like I said, again, just try to find a place where there's a little bit of space, I guess. And if not, just, especially with hostas, you can go and just chop right through them. They're you can handle them a little more rough and tough. So there we are. So you might lose a couple of leaves as you're doing that, and that's totally okay, because again, like we said, what we're most concerned about is the crown and the root ball, and making sure that we have a healthy set of roots there to work with and get reestablished. And hostas, you can, take, as you saw, this plant wasn't overly large, and you can get a ton of divisions out of this thing. So I like hostas for that reason. Not always, but I like to say, like, plants are the gift that keep on giving. So out of one little clump, we can get 10 new plants, 10 new friends with us. So that's fun for me. This is still be more or less same kind of situation. You can look, and there's a ton of new crowns developing. You can see some of that roots there too. Just find a good place where those stems are coming through, that you're not gonna lose too many or cut through too many. And that is totally fine there. You can see that I've obviously chopped right through something, which if you dig, or if you remove all of the soil, that's one way to avoid that. And if you do have a more delicate plant or species that you're more concerned about, cultivar, that you want to make sure you're not losing, a good way to avoid that is to get your plant dug up, let it rinse, soak in some soil, or take a little hose and pressure wash that soil out of there, and you get a really good visual of what's going on in this fibrous root ball, and just be able to work that. This should probably be cleaned up a little bit more, but this way nothing's getting chopped through. It's a nice plant that right in the soil again, and it's going to be great. Again, that's for things that you just want to make sure have a good transition through, and just letting that soak through water, that's perfect. This geranium is a little bit different because the root system is different than a astilbe or a fibrous root ball like hostas have, and they're rhizomatous growing. Is rhizomatous a word? Right, they grow by rhizomes. And so they actually just kind of crawl across the soil. You don't really even have to dig that deep for this. I like to just kind of scrape it with my shovel, and you get a bunch of these new plants coming off of here. As you can see, these definitely needed to be divided. They just want to fall apart. So, and something like this that grows more on the surface, again, when you're replanting that, it doesn't need to be super deep. You can just kind of move the soil aside and bury that in there. It doesn't have to be, 6 to 8 inches deep or anything like that. And then you get to make a new space. You can, I guess, trash them if you want, especially something like hostas. They're just always coming back. Share them with your friends, create a new garden space. Lots of fun things to do there with them. Some things that you maybe don't want to divide would be some of the self-seeding plants, for example, the asclepias or the balloon flowers. Maybe wouldn't have as much of a success rate going forward if you try to divide that, and their root system just doesn't make that very accessible. Also, the Russian sage, for example, back here is more of a woody kind of a shrub growth habit, and so dividing that can be difficult to get enough roots with. So there are some species or plants that you don't really want to or need to divide, keeping that in mind. And you can find that probably on our website. We'll have a little link for that. Something else, daylilies. You can divide, and that's a popular choice, and they have a nice fibrous root ball as well that will transplant easier. Also, that's another one, if you're noticing that they're not really flowering anymore, they're just kind of like laying on the ground, try splitting those up. That would help a lot. So that's what I have on hosta division or perennial division. So thank you very much, and call our garden maintenance line if you would like some help with your perennial division. Thank you.
Hi everybody, thanks for sticking with us through the seasons. I'm happy to be here again. It is September. Lauren just talked to us about dividing perennials, which is very helpful for anybody that has a garden that's a little bit overgrown. This is a great time to take care of that. I want to talk about some of the other services that garden maintenance can provide this fall or in the fall season. What we typically do this time of year is we start to begin prepping the beds for winter. So any of the perennials that are starting to brown out, we'll cut them back, and more as we get into October, November. It's important that we put the gardens to bed for the winter. And then also we can remove the leaf debris from the beds. Anything that would cause disease or anything like that in the late winter when it's a little bit more wet, and we want to get all the leaf debris out of the beds beforehand. And also it makes for an easier spring cleanup as well. And everything can just start to pop without anything in its way. This time of year also, we are currently installing mums and beautiful fall planters. We have some really neat perennials and annuals that we can add to your pots to spruce up the front. We can add mums into the garden beds where you've had summer annuals that are looking kind of drab at this point. What else? We have lots of kale. So it's fun this time of year to get in the spirit, and that's how we do it. Looking further down the road into November, around the time before Thanksgiving, we like to get into the holiday winter spirit. So we dress up people's pots, our clients' pots, with beautiful winter greens and red dogwood, all sorts of accoutrements to make your pots beautiful and your entryways sing for the holidays. So if you have any questions, feel free to call me. I don't think I introduced myself, but you may know me from past videos. My name is Ashley Hansen, and I am lead sales at Bachman's Garden Maintenance in the Landscape Services office. So feel free to give me a call. I love to talk. I'm always available. Thank you.